Croeso, hello, welcome to the latest episode of Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you by Red 10 People Development. It's been a busy old week for us. We've got a new signing, we've got the academy debacle, and we've got a pre-season friendly to look forward to as well. I'm Rich Fay, joined by Nathan Salt, who is still at Wimbledon. How's that?
Very rainy. Wimbledon is... friends of mine down here are joking that I brought the Mancunian weather with me, which is rubbish normally. Rains a lot of washouts. So I've watched a lot of tennis, but yeah, washed out for the most part. But feeling good. It's been a very, very busy week of Wrexham, Rich. And also, our trip to Vancouver is edging ever closer. What is it now, 2 weeks away?
Yeah, less than 2 weeks, but we've got this trip to Hanley to look forward to as well, which is the Vancouver of the Midlands, I'm led to believe. And, you know, like you said, it has been a busy week. We've got a new signing in as well, George Dobson, after he left Charlton. He was set to go to Hungary, but he changed that due to personal circumstances. He's ended up in North Wales instead. Before we maybe get too deep into that, and we have got a Charlton expert on Dobson, what was your reaction to the deal? Quite an exciting one to get the ball rolling again, but yeah, maybe not the striker that we've been dreaming of yet in the summer.
No, didn't we have this debate last week that maybe... I feel like I might have said that we were well-stocked in midfield and we were absolutely fine and we didn't need to get any more midfielders, and then a couple of days later we go and get George Dobson, who, you know, has every chance, I think, of being one of the potential captains. He was Charlton's captain and they wanted to keep him. I think for him, he's played so many games, over 200 appearances in League One. He, wants to be, like a lot of players, he wanted to be remunerated for that. I think he's seen other players, other top players get a lot more, and maybe Charlton just couldn't match. Well, we don't know maybe about it. They didn't match it. He was set to go to Hungary, and then personal circumstances changed. And it sounds like, Rich, it sounds like Parky kind of was monitoring him. He was off to Hungary, and so you think, oh, never mind. That falls through, and it's a quick call. It definitely sounded when Dobson gave his interview that things moved quite quickly. Quick call. 6-hour drive, I think he said, up to North Wales. Signed, sealed, delivered, and George Dobson is going to be in Wrexham's midfield for the next 3 seasons.
Do you see him being the Luke Young replacement then? I mean, how do you see this midfield three? We'd expect it to be sort of stacking up next season. Who are your starters? Because we were saying last week that, look, you've got George Evans, who, when fit, is arguably the best defensive midfielder in League One. You've then got Tom O'Connor, who is primarily a centre-back, but would traditionally be your Evans cover. There were instances, last season when we played both of them together in midfield, and that could be an option going forward. It means you've now got a spare man there as well. It's interesting to see what our tactics will be, and interesting as well, Nave, just to see how our midfield sort of adjusts next season. Because do you think we will play more as a deep line two with someone far forward, or do you think it'll be as sort of gung-ho as it was last season? I personally think we'll be a bit more defensive next season. I wouldn't be surprised if we're starting games with Dobson and Evans, and then we just have an Elliot Lee further up the field.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably taken all the points that I was going to say there away, which is a slick podcasting move. What I would say is, firstly, to answer your very, very first question, I'm not sure anyone can fill the Luke Young hole in my heart, Rich. It'll take a long time to heal. It's a bitter blow. But no, clearly he's very, very talented, immensely talented, and at the level has been Mr. Consistent, very, very fit, touch wood. I'm touching on this very delicate Wimbledon table here. It's one of those fold-out tables that you keep putting away every 5 minutes, so I'm hoping it's going to stay steady with my laptop on and my camera and everything. But yeah, George Dobson, I think, from what I actually spoke to one of his old managers, Dean Keats, no less, and he worked with him at Walsall, and Dean was saying that he's a great lad. He's one of those players that hasn't maybe got too much. I won't repeat exactly what he said, but maybe he hasn't got too much, between the ears or whatever. But he's a top lad, and someone you would want in your dressing room. Loves a tackle, will give everything to the cause. Will run a lot. And I know these are simple things. You say, well, he should run a lot, and they should get stuck in. But that is things that not every player does. You do get a Luke Young, a Jay Harris, a Dean Keats type. I don't know who else have we had that's like a midfielder that's got stuck in, a Sam Wedgbury. They're not all the same midfielders. Jay Harris, it's so good. We'll say him twice.
Tenacious midfielder who's gonna get he's not going to shirk away from tackles.
Mm.
I think the fans are going to love him. Basically, from everything I've heard and the clips I've watched, he does, like you said, look like that sort of, maybe at times. I think he maybe is a bit like, I think he is quite in that Luke Young mold. It seems like he's a real fan favourite. Someone who plays with his heart on his sleeve, doesn't sort of shirk out of tackles. He gives his all on the pitch. Sometimes he lacks that little bit of finesse or quality in the final third, but he can make something happen out of nowhere. Really good passer of the ball. I just think he's going to make things tick over quite nicely. Let's hope he knows how to take a corner kick. I mean, that should be, that is the one criteria we should be looking at here by buying a player in, because with Luke Young gone, I'm just dreading seeing Elliot Lee corners just fail to beat the first man or just drift harmlessly out of play next season. So hopefully Dobbo can take a corner. Oddly enough, that's not one of the questions I asked our Charlton expert, who we will introduce now. Tash, you might remember her. She's been on the podcast like 2 or 3 times in the past. I think she spoke about Elliot Lee when we signed him. Maybe Owen O'Connell as well. It might be someone similar as well that we've had from Charlton. But yeah, asked her all about our new signing, and this is what she had to say about the former Charlton captain. So Tash, thanks very much for joining us again on Rubber and Red. I guess the first question is, what was the Charlton reaction to the move?
So Charlton fans' reaction to Dobson's move to Wrexham has been mixed. I would say if this had happened, like we knew this was going to happen in the end of the season in May time, then I don't think it would have gone down well. But it's sort of been a bit of a strange departure. He couldn't agree a new contract with the club. That was the club's fault. And then he signed a contract with the Hungarian side in January that then turned into a pre-contract agreement. He was going to go this summer, so it meant he stayed for a relegation battle from January into April. That was like motivated by Nathan Jones coming in, and he said, no, we're not losing our captain in a relegation battle. So so to answer the question, we can see why he would go to Wrexham. You guys are paying some of the highest wages in the division, a lot more than what we were offering him during the contract negotiations, which didn't go down well with the supporters at the time. At the same time, I think we've recruited well this summer. Like, we've brought in Luke Berry and other midfielders. So I think it's gutting to see him go, and it's gutting to see him go to a League One rival. Like, that will sting, like seeing him in a Wrexham shirt. But overall, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. If we could have kept him, I'd have liked to have kept him, but it's also not the end of the world.
And how will Dobbo be remembered by Charlton fans then?
I think Dobson will be remembered as a very bright silver lining, I think, is probably the way to describe it, in amongst seasons that have been very underwhelming and very disappointing. He came in, or got his place in the starting lineup under Johnny Jackson when he became our manager a few seasons ago, after not really getting into the starting lineup, and ever since then he's been a constant. And yeah, he was our captain last season. He's always led by example, and he's always been one of those players who you never had to question his passion. And we will miss that, although I'm hoping that now we've brought in players like Luke Berry, as I've mentioned, Matt Godden, obviously players that have come from high leagues. I think we will have that experience and that leadership that Dobbo brought. But yeah, he definitely stood out for me as one of my favourite players of this era. And a great character as well, like always last-ditch tackles. He nutmegged Harry Maguire at Old Trafford as well when we played them in the League Cup, when we played Man United. So yeah, he'll be remembered well, definitely. And he put up with a lot of bad times at the club, so you can't fault him for that.
What do you think Wrexham fans should expect from him in his first season?
So George Dobson played for us in midfield. A lot of the time he was more of a defensive midfielder. However, he did have a habit of bursting forward the ball on occasions. He's very good at crossing the ball into good positions. Like, a lot of our goals in the latter half of last season were created from his crosses. So we will miss that next season. And as I've said, he loves a last-ditch tackle. He's not the most technically gifted player in the world. I don't think that's me being mean, but he will battle for everything and he will win most of his tackles. Like, if he's not winning his tackles, he's having an off day. But yeah, that's what you can expect from him. Oh, and he loves to pop up with a goal randomly.
I think one of the big questions Wrexham fans will be wondering is how he will fit in. Is he good enough for League One standard, really? What would you say his level is at the moment?
I don't know much about Wrexham's midfield at the moment, but to me, I think Dobson. I think if you're looking to be a promotion side, I think you could argue that he's a starter, but it depends what options you've got in midfield currently, to be honest with you. For us, he was definitely a starter last season. But we brought in Connor Coventry from West Ham, as I've mentioned, Luke Berry's in there. We've got quite a few good midfield options, so I think he might have struggled to get in our 11 this season now, but he definitely would be in there, and he has the capability to play loads of games. Like he played like most of ours last season, so he definitely has that in his locker to be able to get through a season without getting injured, or at least not for long periods of time. So yeah, he has that. He definitely has that in him, and he's proven it at this level time and time again. So.
And finally, we can't have you on without asking about Charlton. What are your expectations? What do you think a Charlton fan's expectations are heading into the new League One campaign?
I feel like I always answer this question the same way every year, but I'm currently in the delusional stage of where we made a few signings and you think like, oh, like what could go wrong? But with Charlton, that is never that straightforward. However, obviously after last season we finished like 16th in the league. It was a very disappointing campaign. 3 different managers, relegation threat, obviously threatening to lose George Dobson halfway through the season. We lost Corey Blackett-Taylor to Derby, and obviously we've sold Alfie May this summer as well. So it's a bit of a shake-up, but obviously we have Nathan Jones. I'm sure your listeners will know who Nathan Jones is with the Welsh connection. It's hard to miss him, to be fair. He's a loud character, but Charlton fans have loved him since he's come in. I think the 2 previous managers, no disrespect to them, but I don't think they quite had that passion behind them, and Nathan Jones definitely has that in abundance. So I think at the club's been guilty of bringing in players who are there to pick up a paycheck, either because at the end of the end of their careers, or they're just not that, like, they're not willing to fight for the shirt. And I think a lot of players have been signed on too long contracts and too much money. Whereas now I think we're making a turn with that with Nathan Jones. Obviously, he's very experienced after building up Luton, after taking them, obviously similar journey to you guys in the way that he's brought them all the way from non-league and then got them up. So I think when he left them, they are on the brink of going up from the Championship. So obviously he has a history of rebuilding clubs, and that's exactly what we need. He's also got talent for bringing through young stars too and helping nurture them, and we've definitely seen that this season, or the season just gone. Croy Anderson, for example, he got dropped under Michael Appleton, but then when Nathan came in, he brought him back in and really instilled some confidence in him. So he's very capable of doing that. And I think, as I've said, like bringing in the experienced players too. Like we might have lost Alfie May, but having the league's top goal scorer does not mean that you're going to get promoted, as we found out last season and as Blackburn found out last season in Sammy Schmodic. So we will see. I don't want to jump the gun, but I feel like most people are feeling positive. We just hope that Nathan Jones gets the backing that he needs. And I don't see why we can't push on this season and hopefully get out of this league.
So Nath, yeah, I mean, as we sort of discussed there, he sounds like a player who will be missed, from Charlton fans. Probably was the right time for him to sort of move on, and a fresh start for him now in North Wales and raring to go. It adds that little extra bit of spice as well. That trip to the Valley, it'd be interesting to see what sort of reception he gets there. And my dad actually spoke to me this week. I think he was talking about grounds we've not been to, and he said, I've actually been to the Valley. I was like, when would you have been to the Valley? And I think he went to watch The Who in about, I can't remember what year it was, but he said that's how he sort of ticked off the Valley. He said it's quite a welcome we'll get there, proper old school ground. So I'm looking forward to that one now. That
Rich, I was going to say I'm excited to see how the midfield shakes out, because we probably need to put out that updated squad ladder, that kind of squad depth chart that we put out, and it did quite well the first time. Maybe we need to update that, but if you're looking at it, you could say You've got Lewis Brunt in the defensive stakes. Does that mean he'll go in ahead of O'Connor? Will he go in ahead of Max? Will he be behind either of those? If he is ahead of O'Connor, what does that mean for O'Connor? Just signed a new contract, clearly firmly in the plans for the forthcoming years. George Evans, like you say, we all know his quality. Dobson has not come in to sit on the bench. James Jones, the fittest player in the squad, alongside James McLean. McLean can obviously play in midfield. He's done really well there. Elliot Lee's Elliot Lee. Andy Cannon was brilliant last season. We were both vouching for him to be player of the season. So, and then you got Jordan Davis, who, I'm still unsure whether he'll be at the football club come the end of the window. I still think that maybe he could get a loan move, but we'll see. Clearly, I think Parky said this week that there are people that have got offers there for loans. It's just a case of they probably don't get triggered until after the US tour. It's not the type of thing where you don't need to, from the club's perspective, you don't need to hamstring yourself, whatever the word is now, because you don't know if there's niggles and knocks and injuries that you maybe didn't see coming. I know a few that have come back this week and maybe carrying a couple of knocks here and there, and we'll see who turns out in the Hanley game before they go to America early next week. But yeah, I think there'll be a few that maybe people think, they should go out on loan, but maybe it'll be a little while longer yet, maybe post-tour.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's just sensible squad building. You've got to be selfish, really, in pre-season. I know that a prospective club would like to oversee a player's pre-season if they can, but with loan exits, the players would have a full pre-season under Wrexham anyway. They'd get up to speed, be match fit again. And then if an offer comes in towards the end of the window and you've got someone lined up to replace them, that's when you let them go. But like you said, I think it's such early days in the summer now that you almost wouldn't expect to see those loan exits. And again, that probably plays in with the Mullen stuff. And, we'll jump ahead here because Phil Parkinson has said, that Paul Mullen could miss the first few games of the new season. I think that's been quite clear, when we spoke about it last week. But that's also why maybe we won't see movement on the striker front initially. I mean, being our luck, everyone will be bloody released by the time this podcast's out. But because Mullen's got to be sidelined anyway, you are limited with one less striker in pre-season. It only takes one knock, one player to have a little bit of an illness or, a tight hamstring or something, and your options are depleted. So, same as you, I think that some of these strikers who we might not see having long-term futures at the club will still feature in pre-season just because that's the nature of pre-season, and them playing a part in Wrexham's pre-season regime doesn't mean that they are part of the club going forward next season. It's just to keep them match fitted, to put them in the shop window effectively for any club who can come in for them. So we've had the new signing, new deals, Nath, and from a Wrexham point of view, definitely internally anyway. I know externally it's all about new signings, but are Wrexham going to do any better business than with what they've done already? Tom O'Connor, new long-term deal. Max, new long-term deal. Arthur back. George, new long-term deal as well. I mean, wow. That is what you want. We are building for a long-term future here.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was just typical that I'd been sitting on that, who's got long left on the contract, and I sent it to you. And I also enjoyed the fact that somebody replied to say that thanks for taking Rich's advice on board to make the graphic uncroppable. To which point somebody replied with a doctored version, which had glossed over. So we'll never beat the Photoshop wizards, Rich. But Arthur till 27, Mullen till 27, Lee till 2027, Lewis Brunt 27, and now you can add Max to that list, and you can add Dobson, and you can add O'Connor. So there's a group of players there that will either, if the club achieve the dream and they get up again, they'll be there, or you're preserving the asset, you're maintaining the value of the asset, particularly in the case of like an Arthur or a Max or an O'Connor, where you can see interest from higher up for those. It makes sense to protect that asset as best as possible, but it's just really good for us because we've grown up with 1 year deals, 2 year deals, and we spoke a bit about that when we spoke to Luke Young, I think, when we were on that podcast, that typically you wouldn't get these long-term contracts, and now we're giving out 3 year deals like they're Tic Tacs. It's very, very good, a real sign of intent. And O'Connor might not have the tash anymore, but still got all his talent. So, that was one that I think was important to do. And now it's a question, Rich, of who's next? Are there more? Do you sit and wait now? Do you try and get a Mendy, a Jones, a Cannon, a Barnett, a Palmer, any of those tied down, or do you just sort of sit and wait? You've got your main assets done, and now we see how things play out.
Yeah, I think you wait on the other ones now, personally. I just think that if you were to name sort of Wrexham's 5 just best footballers, they're kind of the ones who have these long-term deals. I just think there's question marks over the longevity of everyone else. I know Andy Cannon's brilliant. He's had a fantastic end to the season. We had all that clamour for him to get Player of the Year. I wouldn't have complained if he had done. You still maybe have to see a little bit more from him to really gauge the true level he's going to be at long term for Wrexham. How far can he go with us? If you were trying to build a Wrexham team and say which one of those players would be able to compete for us if we got to the Championship, if we were pushing for promotion to the Premier League, it would be a Conquo, it would be Max, it would be O'Connor, it would be Evans, it would be Mullin. They are the core, the spine of that team, really. And I think everyone else still has that point to prove at the higher levels, more so than the others, really. So for me, I'm just very happy with the player retention, very happy that we are keeping hold of these players. And like you said, just having the contract doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stay with us for forever. I mean, right. We saw Langstaff was made Notts County captain, signed new deals, and he's at Millwall now. So, things can change very quickly in football. But what it also does is it protects their value going forward, because I wouldn't be surprised if there comes a time where a huge offer comes in for someone like Max. And what it does is it gives Wrexham a lot more power in negotiations. Obviously, it shows their faith in the player anyway. But it also means that if, whether we like it or not, we've been a buying club for the last 3 years now. We've been very fortuitous in that we've had all the power. But the higher up we go, and the better players we attract, we might have to sell some players to move forward as well. And, if an offer came in for Max, you can now point towards this long-term deal and say, this is how much he's worth to us. This is how much we'd have to sell him for. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that's another important aspect of it, that you are protecting your assets from a financial point of view as well, because, the tables are turning in that regard, that we are going to have to become a selling club at some point, I think.
Yeah, Max is the one that people will point to, or Arthur. I do also think that the Tom O'Connor business is really shrewd business, because he's got ambitions of being an international with Ireland, and to do that, you feel like he probably needs to go up another level. Usually, I mean, you do get internationals in League One, of course you do, but Championship. If you're an international manager, you'd like to see him in the Championship or Premier League, and I just think Tom O'Connor is a. I'm unsure with him, because I'm getting tripped up on my words. I'm just kind of, he has to play. Do you know what I mean? Like, he has to play, and yet you've got Lewis Brunt, and you sort of have to play Max. We've got so many players that I think have to play, and there aren't enough spots to play all of them. Yeah. Like, I would think George Dobson, I think he could get the armband now, and I would say he then has to play. What does that mean for Evans? Does Evans drop back into, for example, does Evans become a central centre-back, and he's competing with Owen O'Connell, and he's got, pace either side of him, and then it's Dobson, imagine a back three of, say, O'Connor, Evans and Max, or Brunt, O'Connell, Max or O'Connell. There's various different permutations of how that could look, but Evans could drop a bit further back. I've seen some people suggest that Dobson would play ahead of Evans, and Evans would be the backup. I'd be amazed by that. But then you wouldn't, like I say, I wouldn't have imagined that Dobson would be coming in as a player to sort of sit on the bench. It does make you wonder about the likes of James Jones, Anthony Ford. There are a lot of players I've got more question marks over. It's just with O'Connor, I'm certain he has to play, but there's so many good other players that I'm just trying to work out, do we now revert him back to midfield, or does he stay at left centre-back and it's Max and Lewis Brunt on the other side?
It's just options, isn't it? We are so stacked for quality there. I think my 2 cents I'll offer on this is, for me, O'Connor is primarily a centre-back now, but I do think, like I said, we'll play with 2 deep midfielders next season much more often, so that will either be O'Connor and Evans or Dobson and Evans. And again, the suggestion for me that Evans could be dropped next season I find ludicrous, because I think the injuries really just affected his reputation a little bit. People think he's maybe not as good as he was. He is Wrexham's best player, I think. Personally, I think he's Wrexham's best player, George Evans.
Really? I mean, I'm not knocking the opinion. It's very fair, very legitimate. But we do know you're in love with Gorgeous George. But if
That
you're
is
making the case, then
that is a little bit of
why?
bias. Yeah, I
Right.
do fancy him, which obviously plays into that. But yeah, I just think he's technically the best footballer we've got. I think he makes a huge difference. We've seen. Look, the very best teams in world football have that defensive midfielder who just makes everything tick. He does all the dirty work, makes the game flow. I just think Wrexham are so much better with George Evans in there. So interesting to see how it all works next season. But for me, I think he has to be in any 11. What is maybe interesting though, Nath, is that we have strengthened centre back and centre mid. Does that, in itself maybe point towards that next season we're expecting it to be a lot tougher and we need to have a much better defence? Because I'm a little surprised we've not added anyone who's a bit more attacking. Like I said, I think we're both slightly concerned maybe about the wing backs, whether we're going to have enough on both sides for League One level.
Yes, but defensively we needed to improve. We lost Bentosa. That's a huge influence, even if he wasn't playing by the end. Huge influence on that back line. You've managed to keep Max. But Max is still young, has played a lot of games, and a couple of injuries. I remember that Sheffield United game we lost Tunnicliffe and Hayden in the same game, and suddenly you were worried about options. So we knew we needed to strengthen at the back, and you just need to make yourself harder to beat as you go up the levels, because you aren't going to fly through every league. We did think we would go through League Two, which we did, but not many of us, ourselves included, Rich, and we'll do our League One predictions right on the eve of the season. We're not expecting us to breeze through League One. So I can see the logic behind Parkinson building it out from the back. You get your goalkeeper for years to come. You recruit another really highly rated young centre-back, and you tie down another centre-back, and then O'Connor, who's kind of that utility man, a bit of a hybrid. You've tied down George Evans. You've brought in a George Dobson, who, in the quotes, I definitely felt like Parkinson was intimating that he could be the captain. Great leadership quality. He's been captain at Charlton. No decision on that yet. I'm not sure that's the end of the world. It will be interesting at Hanley who wears the armband, because obviously it won't be Mullin. Could be McLean. I think he's got to still be a front runner. We had this debate weeks ago. We don't necessarily need to go back over it, but again, that'll be really interesting. And but on the wing backs, I don't know really, Rich, because you look at it and go, I made the case a few weeks ago about maybe Luke Bolton could play maybe more of a role further forward as an attacker. If you're in game, maybe I'm not sure. I see him as a starter. Anthony Ford, I still think has a lot of talent, but it's kind of been forgotten about. He's in that James Jones kind of camp where, what have you done for me lately? You were deregistered from the squad and you weren't involved. Still think he's got a lot of defensive capability, which he's shown at League One before. Ryan Barnett, I think's got a massive season ahead of him. We definitely we didn't put the jinx on him. He had a good season, but we definitely maybe over-inflated him a little bit by saying he was going to be one of the front runners, League Two Player of the Season and all that. So we'll temper expectation this time. But he's got a big season in a contract year. And then on the other side, James McLean, fitness freak. We said that. I've definitely changed my tune on him. I cannot believe how fit he is and what an example he sets. And Mendy, we don't think is going to be right for the start of the season. So it's not like we haven't got a lot of wing backs, Rich. It's just whether you feel like those are sufficient to achieve whatever you want to achieve, whether that is to achieve playoffs, whether that is to achieve top 10, or whether that is to achieve automatic.
Yeah, I've just got this feeling that we'll probably go into the season with what we've got, and then maybe it'd be the type of position we look at in January, where maybe we need that extra bit of firepower, something a little bit different, out wide to give us a bit more oomph up front, or just people who are of a higher level. So again, there's so much of the window left open. I'm actually quite surprised that we've managed to do as much business as we have done already. I know we've been saying it's slow, but if you put the contract renewals in there, it is the cliche like new signings. So I do think that we have got really solid foundations going forward, and we do say it every week, but we will be active right until the end of the window, and I think that's when we might buy the biggest star player would be, the biggest star signing could be late in the window, I think, for Wrexham.
Well, Rich, I was going to say that print has been a lot busier than I thought it would have been a few weeks ago when we were scrambling around to do a podcast. But you know what? Based on what we've just had a conversation on there, we say this every week, we should be reading them out at some point, but robryanred@gmail.com. Let us know who you think the best player is in Wrexham's squad. Do you agree with Rich? Is it George Evans? Or who should I go for? Elliot Lee? I think technically he's so good. So
You're still going for Luke Young, aren't you? We all know that.
yeah, Luke. I'm going to go with Luke Young as Wrexham's most technical player. Rich is going to go for George Evans. So yeah, emails, get in touch, and we'll try and read a few out. We will try in the year 2030 or something like that. Probably, Rich, won't we? But anyway, let's keep this podcast going. Right, Rich, you've been at the Killers this week, I saw, which looked a very fun gig. Paul Mullin went to the British Grand Prix. I've been at Wimbledon, but I've also been busy on the Academy and what's been going on with the Academy.
You and the Facebook mums.
Me and... don't you start as well. Me and the Facebook mums. No, look, it's clear. Look, firstly, what I'm going to say is... And I said this to the club, so no one's going to listen to this at the club and dispute this. We had good open conversations about the fact that Triple R or Rob Ryan Red has received a lot of messages of frustration and angst among parents, Rich, about if they don't get Category 3 status, they can have a scholars team and nothing below that. So you're under 9s to your under 17s. I think you can keep your under 17s. You can't have the other teams, so your 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s, etc. They would be without an academy to play at. And a lot of people want to be associated with Wrexham. So some of those parents that spoke to us, and with the proviso that it was anonymous, said that they've taken their child out. They've moved their child out to Crewe, who I think they have a Category 2 academy, or they've moved them out to Shrewsbury, or they've moved them out to different places, which is a crying shame, and they wanted to stay at Wrexham, but there's so much uncertainty around the situation. Wrexham haven't got yet Category 3 status. Club sources adamant that they haven't been rejected and that they simply were given an extension to the original audit. I've seen all the correspondence from the club to the parents. I've seen multiple letters, which I don't need to go into all of them, but a lot of it is no real updates with no updates, classic. Club did say that they've had regular correspondence. I know parents are very frustrated again, and I've seen all these comments, the Facebook mums, and I'm sure people are having a good laugh at it at my expense probably, because I was one of the ones driving the story. Sutty as well, who we've had on the podcast, he also wrote it and is very much aware of all these letters that are doing the rounds, Rich. But fundamentally, it's an important issue to me because in the same week you're praising Max Cleworth and how important he is and how much he could be worth to the club. He did come through the academy, so I've seen some messages. We received some messages saying, what does it even matter? Why is the academy even important? Academy doesn't really make a lot of money. A lot of players don't end up making it. Yada yada yada. Before we get onto their plan to try and get this status, I mean, you would agree with me, right, that the academy is hugely important and is very much part of the fabric of the football club.
Absolutely, and it goes back to your mission statement of being a sustainable football club and giving back to the community. And it's a duty, I think, of any football club to be able to, if they can, run these academy sort of infrastructures where you are looking to find the best local homegrown talent that you can. Not only one, from a financial point of view, to produce players for your first team further down the line. That is, fundamentally why a lot of teams have academies. It's to save themselves millions because you can sell these players further down the line. We've also seen now at Premier League level that they are just this huge financial benefit to a club because of FFP rules, which are warped at the moment, but essentially mean if you sell a homegrown product, it is pure profit on your balance sheet. That's why we've seen all this PSR stuff at Premier League level with Villa, Everton, Newcastle. It's the new buzzword. They are looking to change that long term, but Wrexham could benefit from stuff like that in the future. Another part is it's the history of the football club. Think of all-time Wrexham 11s, and they've got homegrown players in them. It has always been the backbone of this football club. That used to be because we had no money to go and buy our players, so we made the most of what we had. And we did that. We sold players on. Those sales helped keep the club alive. If it wasn't for Wrexham's academy Wrexham Football Club probably wouldn't cease to exist anymore, because player sales from academy products are what kept the club afloat. We used to lose so many players, but even the ones that we managed to hold on to, the ones we managed to develop, they had to be sold because we couldn't afford to sort of match their aspirations, and we needed the money in. So I just think the academy is hugely important to everything Wrexham stands for. And again, at a time when, we've got more money than we could ever have dreamed of, and there's so much positivity around the club, I just feel that it is then a contradiction if, oh, by the way, we can't offer the academy setup that we should be able to, and that many teams can offer. So, there's lots of reasons for it. I'm not just using this as a platform just to beat the club with, but I do think that you can never, ever take away the importance of Wrexham's youth, the heritage of having these homegrown players and continuing to do so. It's our duty as a football club to have this academy going forward, to give more young people the opportunities, not just those who have the aspirations of being footballers, but people who just want to get into the sport, who have them as such huge communal and societal sort of organisations. I just think it is something that we have to honour, and Wrexham should strive to have the very best academy, because, again, going back to the mission statement, if you want to be sustainable and you've got this massive North Wales catchment area, but then you're not taking advantage of it, what is the point?
Yeah, and look, I will say that some of the messages that were sent direct to me, which I can very much laugh off with the day job, what I want to say is I don't believe anybody, including the football club, is beyond critique and scrutiny. And, I just want, and I explain this to the club as well, I just want the club to be the best version of itself. So people saying that I'm on some kind of witch hunt to bring the club down or whatever else with these messages, you're absolute fools. I don't know, you're just being ridiculous. And I've got a great relationship with people at the club. I mean, I'm sure they're never thrilled when I'm coming to them about academy gripes and Facebook mums and whatever else. But it's massively important, the academy, because you look at like Mickey, Joey. We had Wayne Phillips on, I remember, a load of podcasts ago, when he was talking about Jordan and why the academy is so important to him. I spoke to parents who their kids are still in the academy. So if you want to say that, certain parents have got access to grind because they're no longer in the academy, there's parents that have got kids in the academy that just want some clarity. And when Wrexham got promoted to League 2, Rich, they were given a grace period, because it's not easy to get Category 3 straight away when you don't have your own training facility. That's obviously difficult. They were given a grace period, and there's various factors to try and get the licence. It isn't just, have you got a facility? Have you not? It's, you need proof of a 5-year plan. You need, the level of coaching has got to be up to scratch. The academy manager gets scrutinised heavily. This independent audit was done in March, I believe, according to the correspondence with the parents. And, we're getting to a point where they need to know, I believe, or the extension is to the end of the month, I think. And you can see now that the club are really looking to get something through. They announced plans with Darland School. Darland are very excited about that. The club are very excited about that. I know Mike Williamson, the CEO, was working very hard to kind of get that done. Ultimately, those facilities are just plans. Heads of terms agreed. They want to build 5 pitches. They want to build a bespoke changing room, I think, and classroom, and there's various other things. I haven't got the thing in front of me right now, Rich, but it was a grand plan of they were going to basically create an academy base at Darland, which I know people listening will have gone to school there. And so, yeah, that is the plan. They've been working on that, they claim, since November 2023. I would like to think that the auditors would have been aware of that, and maybe you wouldn't have needed an extension. Also, I would say, just in my opinion, I've gone back and forth with the club over this, the semantics of some of the correspondence, I would say, suggested that it was rejected at Category 3 and then they've appealed it. Clubs say that isn't the case, and it was just they were given an extension, so we don't need to argue too much over semantics. But Darland is a positive. That is, concrete plans. They want to invest in the school. They want to create a base. I've seen a lot of people talking about what does that mean for the main training ground. Would it not all be on one site? And would you not have the academy, the women and the men all on one site? The fact of the matter is the academy status is a lot more pressing right now. I know the first team have been using Colliers a great deal. Ben Tozer was on Foster's podcast, wasn't he, saying it's sort of not ideal to go back and forth about showers and eating, but quite clearly they're keen to use Colliers, they're paying to use that when they can, and the academy is a much more pressing issue. So we'll see if they get the status. They're a lot more confident now, the club, that they will get it. If they do, I'm sure I'm still going to be inundated with the jokes about Facebook mums, and so be it. I will eat humble pie, and if it doesn't happen, then we can go into the inquest. But yes, what I would say is totally I validate all the messages we've had from parents about issues they've had throughout the process. You know, it doesn't all get invalidated if they suddenly get Category 3 status just before, but if they do get it, you know, club deserve a great amount of credit for finally getting it over the line. So yes, Rich, Darland School, could you imagine if your school did become a kind of academy base though? I couldn't imagine. I went to Mold Allen, and I couldn't imagine if I just saw a load of people in football tracksuits taking over the fields.
Yeah, as long as you're not against them in PE, I don't think it would affect you too much. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of way around it, isn't it, as well? And
Rich, I was last in PE. You know, one of those like last picks always. I was never. Whereas you strike me as somebody who was fairly sporty and would be a fairly popular pick. Am I wrong there or not?
No, I was too selfish as a footballer. I think. I think not a team player, sadly. As you'll tell from the way that we run this podcast, and you do 99% of the work. It's all ego with me, sadly, Nave. So sadly, I was with you. Although we didn't go to the same school, sadly. But who knows where that friendship might have gone if we went to the same school. We would not be doing a podcast now, I can tell.
We would not have made it this far at all.
Nath, away from the academy as well, another bit of news that you've been working on that should be public now, but at the time of recording isn't public. Jordan Tunnicliffe. Interesting scenario around him, isn't there?
Yeah, Rich. I'm going to get my number blocked soon by the club when I keep ringing up with all these different stories. But yes, very, very curiously, Jordan Tunnicliffe, I would think you would agree, we all thought he'd left the football club. Been released. He was one of the 8 players named on the release club retain list. But it actually turns out an administrative error means that he's technically still under contract with the club. So on his contract, what should have been a June 2024 end date was actually inputted wrong as a June 2025 end date. So Jordan Tunnicliffe and his agent and everything are currently in dispute with the club. So on the record, a statement that was in my piece yesterday was that it's been sent on to an independent determination. That's the words, very fancy words. But essentially, the club are seeking someone else to make a judgment call on, you know, will he need paying off in full? I mean, he signed the contract. He believed it was to 2024. I think his agent originally believed it was to 2024. The club believed it was to 2024. And yet another look over it, and actually not the case. So as of today, as of right now, Jordan Tunnicliffe technically still a Wrexham player or a Wrexham employee at the very least.
Yeah, interesting to see how that one will be resolved, because again, I think you can see both sides of the story on that one, can't you? That if the agreement and everyone understands it's still 2024, then fair enough. But if legally you're contracted to 2025, then you know you're entitled to another year's contract and pay. If that's what's written there and everyone signed it, surely you had the chance to overlook your errors when the initial deal was signed, rather than now. It's a complex one. It's interesting to see how it will get resolved. And again, as well, part of me is like, I don't begrudge a player doing a Jack Rodwell and sitting on their big money if that's what they've signed up for. But on the other hand, it's like, Jordan, we'd literally sort of bid you farewell. You're not part of the plans going forward. So for your own career, really, what is he, 30 years old now? Chance to go play somewhere else. I'm sure he's not the preferable situation would be.
Rich, he's not training with the club. It's not. Yeah. He's not like suddenly like rocked back up. There's a famous clip of an NFL player turning up for training, not realizing he'd been traded and his key card doesn't work, so he can't get into the door anymore. And I sort of think like that's Jordan Tunnicliffe getting into the player's entrance.
That could be me when I wake up one day and the Twitter password's changed.
Yeah, you'll be gone, and there'll be another Rich Sutty will be along and have swapped in for you.
Would be a podcast.
But yeah, I mean, you know, I was told that, you know, Tunnicliffe came out of the the players' WhatsApp group, and it was all done as if like you're on your way. You're gone. You're no longer part of it. He, like I said, didn't expect it, but also, come on now, contracts have lots of eyeballs on it. Yes, it's a mistake, a fairly innocuous one, but it's a fairly expensive mistake if Tunnicliffe decides to, what we could be talking. I don't know. I don't really want to speculate too much about his salary, but it could be 100,000. I don't know. His annual salary. I don't know, but it's a fairly expensive mistake that. Given how
it's also interesting to see what would have happened if he'd signed for a new club already, because maybe Wrexham could go to them and say, actually, he's under contract with us. Where's our transfer fee?
Well, I wonder if that's even. I wonder if that's how it's even come up though. I wonder if he's gone to sign for a new club and they've gone, hang on, your registration is still. I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't know. I wonder how. When did he join? 2022, and clearly no one until now has clocked it as an issue. So it's not that you would keep regularly checking your employment contract, but it's never come up till now. And I just you just stare at the numbers,
check
big numbers.
Still in the job. Everyone says I can't do my job, but I'm still in the contract. So
there you go. I'm sure you're doing absolutely fine. But looking at those big sweet bucks that you get from your employer, 100 grand a week for Rich's musings.
So we don't expect to see Jordan Tunnicliffe at Hanley Town this weekend then, Nath. Like I said, interesting to see what type of team we'll get. I'd expect players to play, a half maximum, then change the full squad at half time. Again, interesting to see who's manager, who's captain. No, the manager's going to be.
Who's manager? I was going to say you're dropping a bombshell. No, it's going to be Phil Parkinson. Don't worry about that.
What are you expecting from Hanley Town?
I'm expecting a decent little day out. I'm expecting, it's when I remember I went to Dorking with James Kelly, and that was just, obviously we won 5-0, so of course it's going to be good. But it was a great day out. They were very hospitable.
Sounds like that Gary Barlow TikTok. My idea of a...
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
Is that what he says?
Get with the time, kid.
I'm on TikTok. Follow us on TikTok, by the way. We're nearly 8,000 followers on there. Also, I love the fact, Rich, on TikTok very quickly. I always put like Wrexham's new signing, and all the comments are absolutely incredible. Like, people are just saying that Wrexham are ruining football, ruining the league, spending huge sums of money. George Dobson arrived on a free transfer, but okay. Anyway, what am I expecting from Hanley Town? I'm expecting a really good turnout. I think there's still a couple of tickets left. We're going to hear very, very shortly from Ron, the Hanley chairman, who's kindly sent us some messages about what we can expect and why Wrexham fans need to give a little bit of patience. It isn't a Premier League club or anything like that, but I'm expecting 45 minute halves, 45 minute sort of run outs for players. Are we going to see Billy Waters or Jake Bickerstaff? What do we think prediction-wise? Who's going on the tour? I think there's a couple that have got niggles, but I would expect we're not going to see Mullen. I think we'll see Palmer. I reckon if I'm going to pick now, Rich, I think we might start with a Palmer Bickerstaff front two. That's my guess to start.
What about Mario?
Potential niggle? I don't know. We'll soon find out if that's right, but that's the whisper, that he might have a little bit of a niggle, but... I'm not too worried about Hanley because it's not it's not a sort of like precursor to the season. It is just like purely a minutes based thing.
It's just a training session, isn't it?
Because Rich as well, we've got Fleetwood. That's been announced, haven't we? It's the final pre-season games. Before we get onto the chat with Ron, Fleetwood home friendly. Parky's been pushing for that, and the club have listened and give it him. So I think that's a positive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really good. And again, I think it's a great opportunity for just a lot of fans to be able to watch a pre-season game, because again, in seasons gone by, you sort of took for granted that if you want to go watch a pre-season game, there'd be three or four opportunities to do so. The Hanley game's a bit out of the way for a lot of sort of Wrexham fans, particularly for a friendly match. Then of course the tour, which a lot of people just can't get to town for work, they can't maybe afford to go. It's quite inconvenient from a Wrexham-based fans point of view, but obviously it's about building that global audience, so I don't begrudge that at all. But in the Fleetwood game, it's ludicrous that you've got to go on the ticketing system to get your reserved seat for Fleetwood Town in pre-season. I kind of love it. I just remember turning up to, was it that Blackburn game we had and the Stoke game? Did they beat us like 7-0 or 7-1 Stoke?
I went to Bolton at the racecourse. I remember doing Bolton at the racecourse. I did that in the press box.
I remember Glenn Little scoring a penalty against Kilmarnock in 2012, I think, or 2013 pre-season, which was another another highlight of the early days.
I still regret I never went to Portugal, Rich. I know you were working for the club at that point, but that looked a belting trip, Portugal away.
Leo Smith last minute header. Did it win us the game or get us a draw? I can't quite remember, but we had a very good night out afterwards. Let me tell you that. That's when I passed out next to a toilet, and Christian Dibble saved me. That's probably a story for another podcast, maybe for a live show if we ever do one.
That is. We'll save that. But
Hanley Town.
Hanley Town. Let's get us back on track aside from your Christian Dibble fiasco. Hanley Town. Ron, the chairman from Hanley, sent us a few messages about how the game came about and what we can expect from Hanley, and what we can expect from the facilities. What is the hospitality going to be like? Hi Ron, thanks for coming on. I know I've been badgering you all throughout the time since this fixture's been announced. I guess the first question for us is, what does this fixture mean to Hanley? And there's been a lot of talk online. Will it be the club's biggest crowd?
This fixture means the world to a club like Hanley Town and any club at our level. Stepford Football Club, our largest attendance during pre-season will probably be close to 100. And now to get a full sellout of 1,750, it's absolutely incredible, and it takes up probably 20% of our budget for the season, so it's absolutely incredible for us. And yes, it will be Hanley's largest ever crowd, so I'm very, very grateful to everyone at Wrexham.
Now, Wrexham fans won't know, a lot about Hanley, Ron. That's fair to say. What can they expect?
Hanley Town are a pretty small Stepford Football Club. We won the Midland League 2 seasons ago. We had to come up from Step 5, and we've had steady progress since then. FA Cup a couple of years ago, we drew 0-0 at Chester, but then lost the replay 4-0 in the third qualifying round, and that's the furthest we've ever gone. We like to think we have the best pitch at Stepford in the country, which is, we've been affirmed by Chris, your head of recruitment, and Phil Parkinson, and we can assure you a warm welcome.
We spoke a little bit about this previously once the game got announced, but how did the game come about, and have you had any conversations with Phil Parkinson? I know he was quite positive in the media about Hanley and the facilities.
One of our backroom staff knows Chris, your head of recruitment, and he came down and he looked at the pitch and he was blown away. He couldn't believe how good it was for a club of our standard, and we just arranged the fixture there and then. I think Liverpool had cancelled on you guys because they're going to a tournament, and for whatever reason Chris and Phil kindly chose us, and we're absolutely delighted, and we can't thank again everybody at Wrexham enough, because it's going to be an incredible day for this football club.
Another one then, Ron, for fans making the trip, what can they expect by way of hospitality? Food, drink, a warm welcome?
I just ask them to be patient. As I say, we're only a small club, but I have got an extra bar, outside bar. I have put an extra bar on. And we've only got a small cafe, so all they ask for is patience and understanding that we are a Stepford club. I own a pub which is not too far away from the ground, £4 in a taxi. It's called the Northwood Inn on Botany Bay Road, ST16PU, and we will be opening that from 11 a.m. on the day, and all your fans are more than welcome. And then take a little taxi down to the ground, between 12 and 12:30, and soak up some of the atmosphere. Again, I'd just like to say thank you to Wrexham and to all the fans. I hope you have a really safe journey across to us, and I hope you have a enjoyable day. So a little handful of tickets online. Please come and enjoy the day. Please know it's not a segregated club, so please just bear that in mind. Also, in regards to parking, again, we're in a residential area, not used to crowds like this. All I ask is you come early, try and car share, be patient, and have a great day.
Rich, Ron sounds very, very chipper. It's a huge game for them, and it's going to be a great Wrexham turnout. As he said, there's still tickets available. And I also love the fact that he plugged his pub that's nearby and gave us the postcode, just in case anyone fancies a little drink in there. Yeah, that's open from 11, I think he said. So kick off at 1
as well,
p.m.
isn't it, Dave? 1 p.m. kickoff, I was going to say.
1 p.m.
kickoff,
kickoff,
I presumed it was 3 o'clock kickoff. But now I know it's 1 p.m. I'm going to have to set my alarm a little bit earlier on
yeah, so I'm hoping you're going to pick me up at Stoke. So I mean, if it was 3 p.m, I think you would have missed the entire game. I just stay at the station.
Yeah, that's fine with
me. But
yeah,
it's fine with you. I know. But yeah, so look, things are ticking along. Signings are coming along. I'm just looking at any other business. Like I've got some official notes next to me. Kit, I believe there's an announcement very, very soon about what's happening with that. I know there was some talk about a photo shoot for the launch and everything, but all will become clear very, very soon with the club. I don't need to take that away from them. Wrexham's fixture clash with Chester. Very, very strange. National League fixtures came out on Wednesday. National League North and South as well. Wrexham are playing Peterborough United away on August 31st. Chester, seemingly no one seemed to bother checking, are away at Peterborough Sports on August 31st. I've got a funny feeling, Rich, that isn't going to go ahead, that clash.
Yeah, I can imagine them changing the Chester game, given that's the one that's just been announced, rather than the Wrexham game that will be in the calendar now for 3-4 weeks. So, yeah, that would have been a fun little trip to Peterborough, wouldn't it? I would probably not have got the train, let's put it that way. But yeah, that one will be swiftly changed. But it is worth noting as well from Wrexham fans' point of view that Peterborough away is maybe one that you shouldn't go booking anything for just yet until there's clarity on that one. I'm just Googling now. What date is that? 31st of August, isn't it? We play them away. So yeah, maybe hold off on making your plans for Peterborough United away, because either one of those games might get flipped to a home game, or they might make one match the Sunday or the Saturday or something, or a Friday night game or something. We'll wait and see for some
Rich,
clarity.
another shout there that fixtures will know before the start of the season. You will know all the TV picks. We've had some of them already. Bolton, we've already spoken about. I think in a previous podcast. Birmingham getting moved to that Monday night, which had Rich beaming from ear to ear. Peterborough, who knows? Shrewsbury, we're expecting that to get moved as well, based on police advice. So I know people are desperate to book stuff, and I think hotels in Blackpool might have already sold out on that Easter Monday. I feel like that's one fan pointed out to me that there's been a surge in bookings on that Monday, or that weekend. So yes, I would say best you can, especially in terms of trains and whatnot. I would hold fire as best you can. And yeah, Rich, I mean, the final thing I wanted to say was, do you think you would pass a trial to be a ball retriever?
No. Don't think I've got it in the accuracy. They said accuracy, didn't they?
They did. So what was it? Speed and accuracy. So if anyone's missed this, the club are holding trials to be a ball retriever for the men and women. So typically ball boy, ball girl, but ball retriever for the men and women's first teams. I think you need speed as one of the even the word as one of your skills. And accuracy. So yeah, I don't know, Rich. I was never great I'm never great at sport full stop, which is why I don't play a lot of things. But yes, I'd be intrigued. Imagine I saw a football cliches podcast, which was a very, very successful pod, and they said this is the easiest way to tell people that you had a trial for a football club, by just having it for the ball retrievers and just leave that part out.
So yeah, I mean, Adrian Chislevich, where's York? They could do half the job, couldn't they? They were always quite fast, not always accurate.
Yeah, I love the story that Tottenham, that Jose Mourinho, because you've seen instances, haven't you, Rich, at Premier League level where the ball boy, or the ball retriever, we're going to call it now, has been very quick and has given the ball back, and then they managed to score. And Jose Mourinho at Tottenham actually invited one of the young lads in. I think he got to meet all the first team after they scored.
Yes, I remember
in a European game, I think.
Yeah, I remember doing a piece when I first joined the MEN. I think it was Man City Fresh Stoke 7-1. I think Pep Guardiola called the ball boy the man of the match or something. And again, I think he got the special treatment in the Etihad. So yeah, if you want to be a Wrexham legend, become a ball retriever for the new season, just set up a winning goal against someone, and it's as easy as that.
Rich, or you do the opposite, or you do the kind of Eden Hazard at Swansea situation where you just rile up all the opposition players by holding onto the ball. We don't condone that, but we do, sort of.
But the guy who did that is like a billionaire now, isn't he, or something? Multi-millionaire? The Swansea ball boy?
Yeah, he's like some vodka millionaire or something like that.
Vodka tycoon. He's on big vodka, so yeah. Drink
responsibly. Anyway, Rich, see us out because it's been a hectic podcast, a hectic week, and I need to get back to the tennis.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, as always, for joining us on Rob Brown Red. Again, a plug for the YouTube, where lots of you might be watching now. If you're not, please go over there, give us a subscription if you can. That would be really, really helpful for us. Again, robbrandred@gmail.com. Get involved on who you think Wrexham's most important player is. If you've got anything on the academy that you'd like to share, messages are on there as well, or message Nath directly. And yeah, thank you so much to Red 10 People Development for sponsoring the podcast as always. Shout out to Hypnotic. You know them by now. You will see the stings if you are watching on YouTube. Their music that we use every single week. Thank you to Nath for doing 99.99% of the podcast again this week. And thank you to you for listening, because without you, we just wouldn't bother doing it. Maybe that is reason enough to stop listening. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.